possible. In my view, that is the true value and public service of this hearing. It provides the American people with insight that they just don't normally get. Those insights are about the spectrum of threats we're up against as a nation, but importantly, those insights are also about the work that the intelligence community does to push back on those threats.
Do you think
This is work that
Sippy Cup
both time
and Camel
both time and
Toe
labor
can
intensive.
handle this?
It can be frustrating, heartbreaking, and dangerous. It's often thankless, but because of the tireless dedication and patriotism of men and women who make up our intelligence community, it gets done on behalf of the American people every single day. To this point, I encourage all the witnesses this morning to not only address the threats to our nation, but to talk about what their organizations are doing.
We're in a
to
different
secure
time
this
now,
country, and to the degree they can, in an
but the threats are the
unclassified
same.
Director Coach, your testimony for the record ties together the expertise, capabilities, and wisdom of the entire intelligence community. I encourage everyone to familiarize themselves with its content. It's lengthy, and it's detailed, and it's a testament to the broad range of talents our IC brings to the table. It's also a compelling reminder of why this country invests so substantially in its intelligence apparatus. Director Pompeo, when we held this hearing last year, I invited you to share your assessments of the things on the Korean Peninsula. I'm going to ask you again for your insights on the state of North Korea's nuclear and missile program, and importantly, what's going on politically with North Korea's leadership. Perhaps you can help us differentiate between a genuine effort to reconcile with South Korea and an opportunistic attempt to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul. General Ashley, the work just never seems to end for our Defense Department. I would value your latest assessment of the battlefield situations in Syria and Afghanistan. Last week, we had U.S. advisors and their Kurdish allies come under fire in Syria.
This strategic ambition to end Seoul's alliance with Washington and to eventually dominate the peninsula. In the wake of its ICBM test last year, we expect to see North Korea press ahead with additional missile tests this year, and its foreign minister has threatened an atmospheric nuclear test over the Pacific. Pyongyang is committed to fielding a long-range nuclear-armed missile capable of posing a direct threat to the United States. And modest improvements in North Korea's conventional capabilities will continue to pose an ever greater threat to South Korea, Japan, as well as U.S. targets in those countries. China will increasingly seek to expand its regional influence and shape events and outcomes globally. It will take a firm stance on its claims to the East China Sea and South China Sea, its relations with Taiwan, and its regional economic engagement. China also intends to use its One Belt, One Road initiative to increase its reach to geostrategic locations
What's that guy
across
doing?
Eurasia, Africa, and the Pacific. From East Asia, we head to South Asia. In Afghanistan, Kabul continues to bear the brunt of the Taliban-led insurgency, as demonstrated by recent attacks in the city. Afghan national security forces face unsteady performance, but with coalition support, probably will maintain control of most major population centers.
That didn't happen.
Complicating the Afghanistan situation, however, is our assessment that Pakistan-based militant groups continue to take advantage of their safe haven to conduct attacks in India, in Afghanistan, including U.S. interests therein. Pakistani military leaders continue to walk a delicate line. Ongoing Pakistani military operations against the Taliban and associated groups probably reflect the desire to appear more proactive and responsive to our request for more actions against these groups. However, the actions taken thus far do not reflect a significant escalation of pressure against these groups and are unlikely to have a lasting effect. In the last month, the administration has designated 8 militants affiliated with the Taliban, Haqqani Network, and other Pakistani militant groups. And we assess that Pakistan will maintain ties to these militants while restricting counterterrorism cooperation with the United States. Next is Russia, where President Putin will continue to rely on assertive foreign policies to shape outcomes beyond Russia's borders. Putin will resort to more authoritarian tactics to maintain control amid challenges to his rule. With respect to Russian influence efforts, let me be clear. The Russians utilize this tool because it's relatively cheap, it's low risk, it offers what they perceive as plausible deniability, and is proven to be effective at sowing division. We expect Russia to continue using propaganda, social media, false flag personas, sympathetic spokesmen, and other means to influence to try to build on its wide range of operations and exacerbate social and political fissures in the United States. There should be no doubt that Russia perceived that its past efforts as successful and views the 2018 U.S. midterm elections as a potential target for Russian influence operations. From Russia, I'll turn to the Middle East and North Africa. This region will be characterized by political turmoil, economic fragility, and civil and proxy wars in the coming year. Iran will remain the most prominent state sponsor of terrorism and an adversary in the Middle East, especially in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Iran will seek to expand its regional influence and will exploit the fight against ISIS to solidify partnerships and translate battlefield gains into political, security, and economic agreements.
Yep.
We also safe and unprofessional interactions pose a risk to U.S. naval and allied naval operations in the Persian Gulf. And Lebanese Hezbollah, with the support of Iran, has deployed thousands of fighters to Syria and provides direction to other militant and terrorist groups, all fomenting regional instability. Security. Former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen, first identified the national debt as the greatest threat to our national security. Since then, he has been joined by numerous respected national security leaders of both parties, including former Secretaries of State Madeleine Albright and Henry Kissinger, as well as former Defense Secretaries Bob Gates and Leon Panetta. And our current Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, agrees with this assessment. Many of you know I have spent a lot of time in my last term in the Senate working on this issue, and unfortunately the problem continues to grow. So I would urge all of us to